Hey, well, welcome to Hit Christian's Substack. I always get thrown off when it says recording in progress. Uh it's been a weird couple weeks. Lots of things have happened that have thrown me off. I'm going to take a couple weeks off from working on journalism. The reason I'm going to do that is because I have a historical play I wrote called Hell's Mouth, a Baldknobbers tale. It's about a revenge tale. Man came home from the war, and when he did, eight men came to his cabin with where his wife was. And this is based on true stories here in Christian County. And so when they came to the cabin, they demanded that he come out. He refused to come out. He sent his youngest son, or his only son, to go get his brother and bring his brother back. But by the time the brother had come back, he and his wife had been killed, pulled out of the cabin, and brutally murdered. And so the brother, the surviving brother, he went on a revenge killing essentially over the fall and winter and murdered all eight of them. And there was a trial for these men. Seven of them were released. The sheriff released seven out of eight of them, and their excuse was this man was shacking up with this woman. They were trying to say that they weren't really married because he had come home from the war. They were trying to pretend that that's what the excuse was. They were indecently and immoral. And so, based on true events here in Ozark, and the characters that go through really painful arcs, and I really liked the play that I wrote. I think it's well done. And so I'm going to turn it into a novel, but I'm going to put it on Amazon Vella. Vella allows for you to sell it through serialization. So you put out like 600 words to 5,000 words. So probably about 1,500 words. And what you want to do is have really good hooks that move the person from one um, chapter to the next as quickly as possible. So they're like, what happens next? What happens next? And so you keep them going. And I think I can write like that. I have an economical, terse style of writing that leads people forward. Yeah, it's kind of keeps the mystery going. So I'm going to take a couple weeks off, focus on that, see how much of it I can get finished. If I can get most of it finished, that would be great. And it will be hopefully some income to bring in, because honestly, this isn't bringing in any income. I know people think I'm doing this for clickbait. I'm doing this for money. Obviously, I would love to earn income as a journalist. Uh, I think I'm good at it. I think what I'm doing is great. It is a business. You know what? Sometimes I do write things in a way that tries to draw people in to read my articles. My titles are catchy. That's the purpose of it. There's an algorithm. So when you guys say that it's clickbait and accuse me of just trying to get views, yes, I am. That's the business model. I'm not ashamed of saying that I do that because that's my job. I'm supposed to get people to read the articles. So, all right. So let's talk about what we've covered. I missed 2 weeks because last week I did a podcast with Gretchen Garrity, so I didn't do a review. So I'm going to do a review of the last 2 weeks. So I was able to hear Chris Ann Hall speak a couple weeks ago at let's see, have to put my glasses on. I can't read without my glasses. So I'm not, let's see, I need to share the screen completely. There we go. So I was able to hear her speak. She's fantastic. She's so smart, so capable. Um, I normally don't get pictures, but Carrie Wells, another journalist, took a picture of me with her. It just surprised me. He sent me the picture. I I've been avoiding pictures. I feel a little self-conscious ever since I got sick and I gained a little bit of weight. So, um, but she is intelligent, she's smart, she works really hard. So go through their article, read everything that try to record. I did my best, but again, she gave so much information, I couldn't begin to record her entire speech. So the I give my opinion at the very end about her. And if you want her socials, they're all at the top. So go back to the top. You can find our socials here. Again, this was put on the Christian County, Missouri Republican Assembly and the Christian County Republican Central Committee at the Ozark Empire Fairgrounds. If you don't know those two organizations and you want to get involved, go to my links on the website and click on them, and you can get involved with those two organizations. They're on the forefront of trying to change Missouri politics. Christian County is really leading the fight in many ways. So we should be proud of our efforts here in Christian County. All right, I did an interview with Mary Hernandez de Carl. She's a fantastic person. She's a good friend. She was a person who came in from outside the community. She had saw some of the horrible nonsense going on in her previous community, and she expected it wouldn't be here. And when she arrived here and she saw it in our libraries, she saw that we had books like Genderqueer and we had books like Flamer, where there's images of children being abused or there's sexual images of children. And the books are given in the children's section. They're not for adults. We're not talking like books that are designed for adults and have adult situations in them. They're books for children with sexual s- chil- it's terrible. It really is. And she's been on the forefront fighting that. She went to the library board. They refused to listen to her. And so then she started contacting the people in charge. It was largely because of Mary that the county commissioners took their actual legal authority to appoint the library board members back. Before, they just did whatever the board would send them people, and then they would just appoint whoever the library board told them. There was no appointment process, there was no interview process, there was no judging whether this person was an actually good for the community or not. And so now, because of her efforts, we have a better system in place. So everybody should really give her a round of applause. She's really fantastic. All right. I talk about when free library services aren't free. I talk about the cost of the library here in this article. Um, there's a service called Mobius, and the library hides it in their budget. They don't have an itemized budget when they share it with the public, and trying to get that information through sunshine requests, other people have tried to, and they send back gibberish. It's handwritten, it's all over the place. They do a great job of trying to hide information when you sunshine request things from them. So there's also Missouri Evergreen, which is something the state itself runs for public libraries, and it's cheaper for the most part. Now, there are some counties that spend a lot more. For some reason, Owensville uh, and Gascony County, with a population of 14,000, spends $20,000. I can't understand what's going on there. They're an anomaly, but most of the other counties have much larger populations that are spending that much. So, um, I think we could save more. Counties around us are spending a lot less. It depends on how many services you, of course, are buying from them. So we could save some money, but our library budget just last year went from 3.5 million to $4 million. And our library doesn't seem to be interested in saving money. So that's a good article to read if you want to try to understand how the library spends money without any concern for their impact on the taxpayer, because they're like, well, it only costs the average taxpayer 5 cents a piece. Well, and then the school board only costs the average taxpayer $5 a piece. And then the county roads, and it just starts to add up. Okay. So this is satire about Springfield pastors building an altar to Ishtar. I got a lot of heat for this one. People did not like it. Um, let me be clear. Satire is designed to make you uncomfortable. It's to ridicule a certain behavior through exaggeration and hyperbole. It's to go after power structures that refuse to uh, be criticized in any way. So my satire isn't about my satire isn't about trying to go after one person or an idea. It's about going after the power structure. So if you're upset about it, you're upset they're going after power. So there's a power structure in Springfield with the pastors, and they don't want to listen to the people. They don't want to listen to God. And so they are acting on behalf of Baal and Ishtar. I'm sorry but that's true. So, all right. Here's another, this is just a philosophy. Uh, so it's theology and philosophy. I talk about Mount Carmel. I've talked about what Elisha. I always get them mixed up. And I wrote this, but I'm terrible, Elijah. I'm terrible with names, so it's one of my weaknesses. And so, um, go through it, read it. Elijah sent those 450 prophets of Baal to the valley of Kishon with the people, and he said, kill them. And I don't think we should do that to our bad pastors, but we should remove them from positions of power, and we shouldn't allow them to preach anymore. People like Benny Hinn, Joel Osteen, men like that should be removed from them perches of power, pulled down, and then never allowed to have authority again in the church. They are, I'm sorry, they serve demonic purposes. They are men who love money, love power. They serve Baal more than they serve God. So they act like they do. Some of the things sound like they come from God, but it's more like witchcraft than Christianity. All right. So I interviewed Bradley Jackson. He's the Eastern County Commissioner for Christian County. It was a really great interview. I enjoyed talking to him. We went over a lot of different issues with him. Go through and listen to this interview if you haven't had a chance to. Uh, we talked about the planning and zoning board, the storage, taxes, spending. We talked about the library board. Um, I really enjoyed the interview with him, and I'm hoping to interview his opponents, just Hodges, and there's also for Western Commissioner, which is not his opponent, Johnny Williams. Um, so I've reached out to them. Hopefully they'll accept it. This one is about Freudian psychology. I've been writing a book called Toxic Theology, and here's part of that. So I talk about how Freud destroyed the soul, made religion a crutch, and told you God was in your head. Basically, um, he replaced the concept of the soul with the idea of the subconscious. And so he tried to make the soul a material thing, and it's not a material thing. He tried to replace the concept of the Trinity with the id, the ego, and the superego. He is his belief system is founded in cruelty. It's very likely he raped and molested his daughter. His psychosexual stages of development are a roadmap for pedophiles. Um, a lot of how people who are advocating pedophiles are minor attracted persons today. They get a lot of their groundwork for their arguments from Freud. And so, uh, sorry, my allergies are just crazy today. I apologize. Uh, just just be aware that Freud is not the romantic man sitting on the couch, smoking a cigar, talking to you about your feelings. He is the high priest of this toxic faith of the 20th century. And he has done more to destroy religion than almost anyone else. And especially in American Christianity, we have adopted more of Freudian psychology than we have adopted God's theology. And we should be aware of that. All right. Here is an interview I had with Gretchen Garrity. She's fantastic. She's really smart. She has a blog called Right to Win Ozarks. She was a former journalist. She has been helping train me to be better at what I do. But we talk about SB 727, and this bill is bad, guys. Um, I know a lot of conservatives are hoping it's a good bill, that it will somehow be the first step in bringing down DESE, and it doesn't. It increases the power of DESE. It allows them to work in the state treasurer. It gives them more board positions and regulatory power. It creates a new middleman, money managers so if I'm a donor and I want to give money now so I can get a tax credit to someone who homeschools or private schools or charter schools, I now have to give that money to a middleman. That middleman gets to skim 10% off. It's called contributions in law, but they're skimming 10% off for administrative and marketing cost. So out of a 250,000 grant, they can skim 10%. And if it goes larger, then it's 8%, then the larger it's 3%. And I don't remember where it breaks down, but you can go through my notes and see. But the problem is when you do that, you're basically creating uh, a fascist uh, a fascist middleman for the government. So this is working on behalf of the government. They decide where the money goes on based on the regulations inside the bill. So it's going to go towards people with special needs first. It's going to go towards people who are minorities and poor communities first, and then it can go to other people. And because the cap went from 50 million to 75 million, they think, well, that's going to help bring more homeschoolers into the problem or into the mix, which weakens DESE. But DESE now has new regulatory powers over this and can improve how some of the money is spent. It doesn't weaken DESE. That just means that DESE will now be able to control homeschoolers more. DESE will grow into DESE doesn't care if it's homeschoolers, charter schools, private schools, or public schools, as long as it can control all of them. And it's in the game. DESE has to be dismantled and destroyed, not empowered. And this bill empowers DESE. It creates 18-hour virtual program for teachers, which is just a buy off for colleges. It creates another program that teachers now have to come up with all this extra money, which will be student loan money, to pay for an extra way of getting accreditation or a stupid certificate to prove that they're a good teacher. But the colleges will now get a guaranteed way of earning money. Yay, colleges, bad for teachers. And then on top of that, they're going to give $5 million for books to provide to students, and the students can sign up without telling the parents that they signed up. And so we don't know who the book providers are going to be. Is it going to be the ALA? Is it going to be Scholastic? These companies are woke. Or if it's going to be ALA with their rainbow reading list, over 100 books that are designed to bring awareness and diversity, inclusion, and queering in the library, are they going to be helping decide which books go to these kids? And there's no clarification of that in the bill. It's a monster bill and it's terrible. 167 pages. Um, it's unconstitutional. Bills like this shouldn't even be passed. It has too much in it. At the very end, it has a bunch of foster care stuff, which that has nothing to do with this bill. And it also looks like it takes away I I'm trying to understand this, but I'm not a homeschooler, but homeschoolers previously had this concept of a safe harbor. If they showed that they had a logbook, it protected them against prosecution. But the way the language is now, they still have to do 1,000 hours. Now they have to do 400 hours of, I think, English and math or something, in setting down in a classroom setting. So all these hours have to be inside. They can't be outside. They can't be doing anything. So it has to look more like a public school. So that's regulation on a homeschool who's not even taking the money. So it does increase regulation on homeschoolers. So don't buy into that. And then there's no longer a protection. So a radical, progressive local prosecuting attorney could come after a parent because the child maybe said to someone secretly, like a psychologist, I think I'm trans, and the parents are excluding that type of material from their curriculum. Well, maybe that's educational neglect, and that child belongs in a public school. So there are problems with this bill, and radical people, and we need we need to not pretend that there aren't radical people who are willing to take advantage of the problems in this bill, acting like, oh no, it's safe. Things will never happen. What world do you live in? I mean, look at the way they're treating Trump. Do you really think that radicals who are going after Trump like this will not go after your children? They hate Trump as much as they hate your children. Come on, guys. Be better than that. All right. So I had an interview with Brian S. Rollman. He works at um not what he works at, but he volunteers to do biblical citizen courses at First Baptist Church Ozark. That's through Turning Point USA. It was a really great conversation. I don't know if we talked a lot about Turning Point USA. It was about faith and theology and all kinds of things. It ranged all over the place. It was a really enjoyable conversation. I really had fun with the conversation. It was at Brahms, so it was a little loud. The mics weren't able to cut out all the background noise, but I really enjoyed having a conversation with him. Great guy. Unfortunately, I think I made his ice cream melt because he I had him talk so much, but I really enjoyed it. So go ahead and listen to that, give it a chance. All right. So conservative homeschool mom to government money addicted welfare queen. This is again about SB 727. I just talk about all the problems that are in it. And I go through kind of what I just told you. Basically, if this bill, this bill will, if you take the money, then you will want more money. As you need more money, you're going to be asking the government for more money. You're going to be, you're going to be a welfare queen. I'm sorry. If you take this money, you're a welfare queen. And if you don't take the money, it's still going to increase your costs because curriculum costs will go up. It'll be gradual, maybe right now, but as the cap goes up, 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 your costs are going to go up. I'm sorry. Um, this is a terrible bill. If government gets involved, costs go up. Every time they subsidize something, costs go up. And this is a subsidy for homeschoolers. And this is a subsidy on curriculum and materials. Your costs are going to go up in those areas, whether you take the money or not. So you'll eventually all be pimped out to the government as a welfare queen. So that's the harsh reality of it. Okay. Um, Bob Titus sent me a message. He said that we need Senate leadership is trying to kill the IP bill, IP reform, which was SJR 74. Uh, so we really need this bill to pass. They did reach an agreement at the end of the week, and so that's great news. They they had a filibuster, the longest in Missouri history, and so they are going to vote on it next week. It looks like they're trying to tack an amendment to it, and hopefully they can kill that amendment because it would allow illegals to vote and allow the Chinese to own more of our property. There were rhinos in our Republican Senate. They need to go. They are they are the most progressive Democrats in our government, and they have an R next to their name. They are not a Republican. Cindy O'Laughlin, Caleb Rowden, and there's more. They just need to get out. And speaking of in the Senate, also in the House, Ben Baker and Ken Patterson, those people are not conservative leaders. They need to go too. They're bad for our republic in Missouri. I'll call them out. You guys should know who they are and look them up. And if you can, if they have someone who's primarying against them, uh, donate to their campaigns. Even if they're Democrats, we got to get rid of those people. There is no good having a supermajority of Republicans if they're all acting like Democrats. All right. I wrote a satire. Honestly, it's a great satire. I said beware because it's kind of brutal, but a young couple goes to a pastor and they want to get married, and the pastor doesn't really believe in marriage between two people who are straight. He attacks them for their views and eventually physically attacks them. It's supposed to be a metaphor for being spiritually killed by your pastors. It is brutal, it's hard to read, but that doesn't make it less true. So, library roundup, I go through a bunch of different stories. There was they make a tiny compromise in, I think, what county was it? Fremont County in Wyoming. They're not really wanting to compromise, but you can see they do. They take a Republican off a library board because he doesn't like drag queens. He's dangerous. Come on, guys. Just because you think drag queens don't belong with kids doesn't mean you are evil. And that's in fact the opposite of being evil. It's wanting drag queens with kids that's evil. Um, Serious tone about like this is actually a really good article. He is well read. He's and it's more of an academic article. I think what he says is important. I would like him to tone down some of the academic prose. You know, it speaks to a certain audience, but if he wants to speak to a wider audience, it's best to not use all the prose that the ivory tower expects. All right, and also the our new state religion with the 2024 rainbow book list, and you can go through that, and then the vile arts at the very end. We have to admit that what they're doing is destroying art. It's destroying the medium of books, plays, um, paintings, movies. Wokeism is destroying art, period. And I believe Christianity has created some of the best examples of art in human history. And we need to recognize that a Christian culture or Christianity, those artists have displayed the highest forms of Christian or highest forms of art. So, and that's my argument in that one. All right, satire cuts, it also heals. Okay, so people need to know this. The church needs to be held to account. I talk with my hands. I'm sorry about that. I just do. Um, we must criticize the church. The church is not innocent. The church has caused a lot of harm for 2,000 years because there are ravenous wolves in sheep's clothing. We have to deal with them. Jesus spoke about it, and before the church existed, Jesus spoke about it in Matthew 7. He spoke about because he saw the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the scribes wearing their nice clothes and their phylacteries and everything. They looked like the kind of people that you would want to be, and they were just ravenous wolves trying to destroy everyone around them. Okay? The church has to be held to account. People who are trying to sell you Christianity, who are selling you this book and this poster and that poster and this t-shirt, everything that makes you look like a good Christian and making sure you got that cross around your neck and making sure that marketplace of Christianity, we need to turn some tables over. That's a problem too. But also just the lies that so many pastors say from the pulpit that aren't from Christ. Um, the fear so many pastors have and not telling you guys the truth. You deserve the truth. You deserve to know that God cares enough about you to tell you that you're mistaken and that you need to correct your behavior and that He has a way to do that. He has a solution to the problem. He doesn't just judge you and then send you off to hell, but He offers a solution in which He died. He gave His life for you. And so that's why the churches have to be held to account. If they are failing to live up to God's standard of ministry, then they're not a church. They're godless. They're not much better than a pagan temple, and you might as well be offering sacrifices to Zeus or to Hera or Diana. There's no reason to go to those churches if they're not teaching you good theology and if they're not teaching you good Christian philosophy. Uh, that's just the way it is. All right. I wrote satire about Blue and his cohorts. Blue is just going through town. He's having a nice evening walk. He meets Blushy at the library, and she's a little frustrated that one family's not paying her their fair share of taxes, and so he helps her break into the house. So you can read through the story and go through everything. So, um, I write satire because it's a great way to expose some of the things you can't really say. Again, satire also doesn't allows me to provide a caricature of power, and it's not really about a person. It's not directed at any individual. It's directed at the power structure of people or groups of people who want to maintain their power without ever asking, am I doing it for myself or am I doing this to serve the community? And there's a lot of people in Ozark who are there for themselves, who are not there for other people. Um, I can't endorse Bradley Jackson, but that man is there for other people. He really is. He cares about the community. He may make mistakes. At times, he may not always make the right decision, but that guy really does care about the community. And I think that about Lynn Morris. Um, Lynn Morris cares about the community, but Hosey Ballou, I'm sorry, that commissioner, from what I've seen and from talking to him on the phone, because I tried talking to him about the library, he doesn't care about the community. He just cares about his image and his power. He just wants people to like him. And that's what I see from him. That's the image I get. So that's my opinion of him, not anything factual. So just have to be clear. But again, these are just caricatures of power, not caricatures of people. So the reason I use forest animals because I think it upsets your expectations. You know, you got an image of uh, Winnie the Pooh. You know, he's going through the forest, everything's happy. But when I use a stuffed bear going through the forest, it sort of upsets that norm when he causes this kind of harm to everybody around him. But he's doing it in such a happy, joyful way. It kind of disturbs your expectations, and that's the goal. So. That's 2 weeks of review. That's a lot to get caught up on. I also want to share one more thing with you. Let me see if I can pull up real quick. I started two new things. So Rumble, I started, let's see if that will pull up the right Rumble account. Nope. Sign out. Try to remember about this. I apologize. I should have had this ready to go. But I started a Rumble account and I am going to upload this on my Rumble account too. So you can go to my Rumble account and I also started a YouTube account. So you'll be able to go on my YouTube. I'll probably get a few strikes for this on YouTube. So let's be honest. I said some things that they're not going to like, but of course I don't get any views yet. So maybe they won't notice. So, I don't remember my password. So I will post the links to my Rumble account and my YouTube account below on my Substack, so you can visit them. Please follow me on Rumble and Substack. Again, I'm going to take 2 weeks off. I need it so I can get this book put together. I think it's got a lot of potential. I'm excited. Um, it's kind of it's kind of good. And I know that you guys come here for the journalism and you're like, oh, that's, everything. But um, let me give you, let me give you something. Okay. So this is just some fiction I wrote, but it's not the fiction about the book. This is just something I entered in for a contest. So at the beach, Leona put the car into park. She yawned and covered her mouth. Yet the thrill of doing something so forbidden had her wired. She looked at the sign that read, Beach ahead, 200 yards. 200 yards on concrete would have left her exhausted and unable to move. She didn't care. She sat for a few minutes, gathering her courage. She lowered the windows and took in a deep breath. She could feel the cool, foggy Pacific Northwest air with the windows down. The smell was unmistakably oceanic, salty, with a touch of rotten fish and something she couldn't quite name. Come on, Leona, she said to herself. You're not done yet. With a tinge of misgiving, she rolled up the windows and turned off the car. She rubbed her legs and hips. She could feel the pain. She could always feel the pain. She opened her car door and swung her left leg out. It barely moved. Sucking in her breath and pulling against the steering wheel, she swung her right leg out. It's worth it, she coached herself. Unsteadily, she stood up, using the door for support. She could feel her racing heart. A dizzying sensation washed over her head. Veins in her neck throbbed. Once her heart was quieter than the dull roar of the crashing waves, Leona stepped away from the car, the door shutting. Lena was already sorry. She was already standing on the sand. Here, the sand was tightly packed and not wet or loose. Scritch scratch, scritch scratch. The sorry, I messed up there. Not the words, me talking. The sounded like she did as she shambled. Her hips rotated unevenly. Each step was agony, yet the pull of the waves seemed to reach for her as they lapped the brown crystals. There were no handrails here, no physical therapist to catch her if she fell. Memories haunted her footsteps of a family that was no longer with her to enjoy the beach. The cool air brushed over her, hiding her unusual gait in the thick fog. Everyone here was a specter passing through. She could see the other beachgoers, but they were smudges that threatened to wisp away on a day like this. The sand grew wet, sucking on her feet. Her hips tried to rebel against her, faltering. Let us fall down here, right here. Let the tide wash us away. Join your husband and son. In the fog, there was a temptation to become light as vapor, one with the ocean. Leona defied her hips. I'm here to conquer you in the sand. I will let the ocean bow at my feet. As she continued her fight, one step at a time, she no longer felt like a spectacle with her broken motion. Despite the thickness of the sand, she wheeled her legs up and down, crashing uncertainly like the waves, pulling back and falling forward. Here at the beach, she was in rhythm with the world. So that's kind of what I want to do. I like writing. I have an economical terse style writing. It's not for everybody, but it's not flowery. It's probably a little more masculine, more working class. So um, that's what I'm going to do for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to focus on my writing, get that on Amazon Villa. I will put the links up. So if you're interested in historical fiction, if you're interested in the Baldknobbers, if you're interested in a good story about revenge, about brothers who love each other at first, but then grow apart because of the war, and then have to learn to forgive each other, that's the kind of story it is. So, uh, as always, I appreciate you being my audience. You all have a great day. Bye.